not familiar with Litchfield, if you look at the map, I'm down at the bottom here in Hillsdale County. And the question that came up, or the talk that I'm doing today, is smart gardening from a commercial greenhouse point of view. Smart gardening has been around for a long time, and Michigan State geared it toward the home gardener. Well, I think anyone who gardens can be classified as a smart garden. I'll tell you a little bit about our company, and then we'll get right into this. So we started as a family truck farm in the Detroit area near Metro Airport in the 60s, supplying vegetables to the Detroit Eastern Market, Chicago, Cleveland, Cincinnati. And then in the 70s, when the airport was expanding, the patriarchal family decided to sell out and sold to 2 sons and a nephew, and they became C. Raker and Sons, Inc. They did some research to find out where the winds were favorable, where the water was favorable. These guys are great. They're very analytical. They want to do things smart rather than just do things. And so they came out to Litchfield. And out here, they found some land. They found a nice place, still doing the truck farming. But in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s in Europe, horticulture really started embracing technology, or technology started embracing horticulture, if you will. It used
Hey,
to
Greg, can you
Yeah.
move closer to your mic a little bit? You're getting kind of far away from us.
Okay.
Thanks.
I can probably turn it up too. Maybe not. I'll just push in closer. Is this okay?
So far, it seems okay.
Okay. So technology came about. It used to be a flat would just be a box with dirt or some kind of media in it, and literally you would pick out or cut out the flowers that you wanted. Well, in the Netherlands, they started with creating trays with individual cells. So that's what you see today. You'll see cells, like we sell young plants. So our trays, which have a footprint of about 2 feet by 11 inches, can have anywhere up to 500 plus plants in it. So it's a lot of plants in a small footprint. And with that, with having the cells, you can actually create technology, robots, if you will, or automation that can plant and sow seeds, to do the sowing, to make that easier and consistent. And that was the key. Once you had that consistency with seeds, you knew you were getting a seed in a cell, you had a plant. You didn't have to pick them apart, you didn't have to cull them, anything like that. And they were ready for transplant. So as that technology evolved, we fully embraced it and switched from the truck farming to full-time horticulture with young plants. And it was 100% seed driven. Our greenhouses were built for that. We used rolling benches. We had a lot of technology that we used. And then as time went on, people started looking for what's the next best thing, I want to be the best, I want to be the first. So then companies started experimenting with clones or unrooted cuttings, which are just what you probably all know. You just take a cutting off of a plant, an existing plant, and you get that identical plant. So we started looking at that, and that the technology is different. There is automation for that, but it's really difficult because of the size of the cuttings. There's some new things that are coming out, but we rely on people to do that part of it. Right now, our mix in our greenhouse is typically about 60% seed and 40% cuttings. And I'll talk about that in a little bit too. Then, as time went on, flowers became more of a commodity. Everyone had them. You could buy them at big boxes. You could grow your own. And as times got tough, commodities, things that are thought to be nice, those things kind of fall by the wayside. And so we start looking for ways to be efficient. And to be efficient, you have to make some decisions. You have to be very careful on what you do and how you spend, which ties right into smart gardening very nicely. If you think of what smart gardening is, and my computer seems to know. So what is smart gardening? Well, you can read this on the screen here, what Michigan State says about it. And it's basically making smart choices and doing things in a environmentally conscious way and in all kinds of smart ways to just be a broad stroke. So you need to figure out what's best for your area. You need to figure out, do I have time to do this, and how am I going to do this? Well, in a greenhouse, we do the same thing. So everything that we do, whether it's at home or in the greenhouse, has consequences. And this especially pertains to us because we need to make sure, since we're a fairly big operation, that we're managing our environment. We're not dumping anything into the groundwater or anything like that. So we are very conscious about how we do things, what we do, what we sell, and even the timing of what we do. And you have to make sure that you're thinking of all those things from the very beginning of the supply chain so it can trickle down to all of us, I'd say, normal, regular gardeners. And that is something that we all have to be careful of. It's basically 4 areas that we concentrate when we talk about smart gardening. Somebody that's concerned about their environment, you think about your water needs. You want to make sure plants are non-invasive, they're not toxic to people or animals. You want to make sure that your gardening is cost conscious. If you're anything like me, at the beginning of the season, man, I have such great dreams. I'm talking about tearing up the yard. I'm talking about making raised beds. I'm talking about doing all kinds of things. And then come about end of July, I'm looking at this mess that I've let go. I haven't watered enough, or I let weeds go, and I think, man, that wasn't very smart of me doing that. I was doing that early on in the year when I had all these good hopes. And I'm sure everyone is different, but it just seems to be that that's the way that things happen. And the other thing that a smart gardener has to think about too is money. All these plants cost money. I'm lucky because I work in a commercial greenhouse. I work in research, so I get to see the latest and greatest plants. I get to try them. I get to play with them, if you will, and make informed decisions. But our hobby can cost money. If you're just getting started, you want to make sure that you've got the right pots. You don't want to be discouraged. You want to make sure that you're doing things that are good to do. That, as horrible as these last couple months have been, I heard a statistic last week that said there are 16 million new gardeners this season alone. And specifically, and I'm not sure how valid this is, but specifically because people can't be at home or can't be away from home. I'm sorry. They're isolated. There's mail order. You can still go and get plants. That was something that was decided here in Michigan early on, which was very nice. I guess. But even then, with these new people, as a commercial grower, we need to do everything we can to make sure our customers can make it as easy for the end user as possible. So we want to make sure that we can provide information, we're a resource, and that we can talk about to somebody what it is to help them to be successful. My role at this company here, Raker Roberta's Young Plants, is research director, and I'm also our HR director. So you see me with a mask around my neck. I get to yell at everybody to do everything properly, to make sure we're all safe, and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our employees safe. To get back to our company a little bit, I got a little sidetracked, I apologize. When the economic crisis in the early, like in 2008, 2010 through 2014, it really started. The banks started looking at their loans and they see agriculture as something that is wildly unpredictable and also not really a good bet for someone who's trying to be conservative with money and be fiscally responsible. We make 90% of our money for the year from January to the end of April. And if you think about it, as a young plant producer, we sell babies. So we're selling through garden centers and places like that. We only sell wholesale. So we make our money at that time of the year. The rest of the year, we either live off of that or we borrow short-term loans. And in 2014, our bank finally said, look, we can't float this risk anymore. Something needs to change. So they brought in some efficiency experts from the manufacturing side of the industry, and they completely destroyed our company. To be honest. They had great intentions, but we deal with living things. When you work with plants, you can say you have an art when you're working with an art. Now, we do about 160 million plants in a year. So you have to have some kind of automation. They saw that number and said, well, you can automate. Well, automation doesn't work when it's late January, early February, and 2/3 of the Mideast are at 20 below zero, so everything stops. You can't ship. UPS, FedEx, they don't drive, they don't do anything like that. So these efficiency experts, while they had good intentions, they really didn't do very much for us as a company. Well, along the same time, we started working with a company called Varieties Unique Gardens. If any of you watch QVC and see any plants from Roberta's, we grow them. Since about 2011, we've been growing almost all of their annuals and perennials that they show on TV.
Hey, Greg, I hate to interrupt you, but is there an external mic that you can use, or if you can get any closer to your mic? A lot of people are still having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, let me try something here. I'm going to stop the presentation for a second.
That works. See if we can get it to get a little clearer. I apologize. No problem.
Am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah, you're still sharing your screen.
Okay. Hold on one second.
Okay.
I apologize. Let me try one more thing here. I'm going to unscreen share just for a second.
Sure.
Don't look behind the screen.
Let's give it a shot.
Okay. Okay, am I back? Can you hear me?
Yep, you're back and your screen is shared, so
okay.
You on.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. It was actually scripted just to show how Zoom can do different things and everything else. So anyway, basically for a smart gardener, there are 4 key things that I started I mentioned. Concerned about their environment, cost conscious. Another thing is, it may not be a good attribute, but it's something people want to be the first. You want to have that first tomato of the season. You want to have that new, cool looking petunia, geranium, whatever. You just want to have those bragging rights. And you do that, but you need to do that with a little bit of thought behind it. And then the last thing is, to me, a smart gardener is pretty much anyone who gardens. You get your hands in the dirt. It's been proven that it is a great stress reliever, especially in this time with odd things going on, with conflicting information, with scary information. To get out in the dirt, I don't know if you are like this, but you just get out there, you can just shed your troubles. And then the other thing too is if you have a problem plant that you're just sick of, you can tear it right out and get a little bit of compression out of it with that, just as well. So this is a plant that is gorgeous, a tree in the middle of California in the high desert. Looks great there. Certainly wouldn't do well in our area. So this is something that as a smart gardener, we may have something like this in a pot, but we certainly wouldn't have it out in the yard. Try to overwinter it, we'd be disappointed. The plant would be not very healthy and things like that. Along with that, you get succulents. Xeriscaping is very popular. We offer a wide range of succulents that can fit the bill for places if you have an office, if you just want to get into something where you can do things and conserve water, things like that, depending on where you like geographically. And you also want to make sure that you're growing the right plant in the right area. You want to make sure that if you have a sun plant, you don't stick it in the shade. If you have a shade plant, like this beautiful begonia here, you certainly don't want to put that in full sun because it'll fry. Now, one of the things that I do as part of my job is portrait these things. So when a breeder will come out and say, hey, we have this brand new begonia that does great in the sun, I say, okay, give it to me, and I'll take it, and we'll go in full sun, and we'll take pictures of it all year, we'll collect data on it. And then they may go, well, it's full sun, but it can only be full sun for a few hours a day, and then you have to do this, and you have to do that. So then I get to be the one to tell them, so it's really not full sun. It's just something that you are trying to cash in on, but you're basically lying to people. And you don't want that. No one wants that. So one of the things that I do as part of my job is to keep these breeders honest. And the breeders are typically the honest ones. It's the sales folks. At the risk of offending anyone who's a salesperson, sometimes you make some commitments that you can't cash for and we're here to help that. Another thing with a smart gardener are natives. You want to make sure that you are not only doing the right plant as far as sun, shade, water, that kind of thing, nutrients, but a lot of the ornamentals that we have are beautiful. They're things that have been bred specifically to be in a nice manicured, well-tended garden. But our native plants have been here a lot longer. They are something that can still be showy. This is a native bed that I had for a few years. I've actually removed it last year to put some other things in. But you can see coneflower, there's goldenrod, there's some grasses there. There's a lot of neat things. And they're really helpful for different types of pollinators. Rain gardens are real popular. This is a rain garden that we have, and we're burning it here. It works really well. The farmhouse in the background had a gutter. It was leaky and messy. So we redid it so that the gutters would come out and they would go into the rain garden. It worked great. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. When we had heavy rains, it would have so we wouldn't have to worry about messing up the house or anything like that. So a lot of things are good for pollinators. That's a big thing that you see a lot now. You want to make sure that you're on.
Greg, are you still there? I think we might have lost you again. You're frozen out. Sorry about this, everybody. You can hold on for a second. We'll see if we can get Greg back. I'm feeling the storms he was talking about are probably giving us all a little bit of a run for our money. But we can hold on for a second. We'll see if we can get him back. Give it another shot.
Try again.
Apologize for the technical difficulties.
Okay. Well, that's what happens when you live out in the podunk. There's some trade-offs. So you want to make sure that you can do things for pollinators, things like that. This is a salvia called black and blue that is a hummingbird magnet. We pretty much have this every year. It's a couple years old on the market. I can stand it in a patch of this in our garden here, and there'll be 30 to 40 hummingbirds just fluttering around happy as can be. And that's something that in our own gardens that is real important, because obviously without pollinators, we're not going to have any kind of plants to begin with either. Like this nice fat happy bee full of pollen on my Rose of Sharon at home. And so you want to make sure that you can do things that are going to help pollinators and let them do what it is that they need to do. Now, concurrent, or the flip side of that, are invasives. Buckthorn, which I'm not sure why it was ever made here or brought here. I'm sure there's a reason for it. But that's a nasty plant. Everyone knows about kudzu. Came over in, I think, the 20s or 30s in the South as a good erosion blocker. And you can see this is something that happened in a week, I think. Maybe not a week, but some of that. Now, one of the things that we as a commercial grower have to be careful of in our greenhouse are just diseases that can run rampant and become something that happens in a lot of places. For example, chrysanthemums have a white rust problem, and it's deadly. It is insidious, and it can infect a greenhouse before you even know that anything is infected. There's a lot of bacteria and viruses that are like that. So we are constantly monitoring. We are constantly scouting and looking to make sure that everything we do is clean, our sanitation is correct, so we can provide the best plants to the end user. Hypomia is another thing. That is something that, because of our potato crops, and this is a sweet potato vine, we have to be very careful. In fact, most of our plants, if we get an unrooted cutting, comes from Central or South America or Africa, along that equator belt where growing conditions are perfect. And because of that, we have to be very careful not to allow disease into the country. So we can't even get this. It's grown in a few places in Florida, and pretty much the crop for the United States comes from just a few farms here in the United States. The problem with that is if someone brings something in, and I know I won't accuse anyone like myself, if you see a cool plant, they might think, well, no one will miss just one of these or that. Well, that causes a lot of problems because then you introduce things into areas where they really shouldn't be there. They may not have a natural predator. It may be something that can just run amok like that quincy did. So in our greenhouse, this is my research bay. We have 11 acres of greenhouses inside, and then I have another 19 acres of gardens outside. But if we have something new, if we get something in that we want to test, or we have something that we're not sure of, we have tests out we have material out to get tested that, we can isolate them and put them in a small place like this where we won't infect our whole crop or our whole greenhouse in all of our ranges and everything like that. Everyone knows what this is, I hope. If not, it's a very pretty bug. However, it's something that is voracious. You can see this, the Japanese beetle. We have to be especially careful here because while we have it in Michigan, there are a lot of places that still don't have it. It's pretty much marched up from the south and the east to us. But in, for instance, Colorado, we have to certify that our greenhouses do not have this in it. So to do that, we use bug screens. We have fans where the air pressure in the greenhouses is blowing outwards. We use double doors. We check each other. And we have the USDA or the Michigan Department of Ag. They come in and regularly check us, not only for crops, but also they walk the perimeter. They make sure that our bug screen is sound. We don't have any open vents outside. Our doors aren't open. We have our shop, which is connected to the greenhouse, and working in there, it can get hot if people are working on vehicles or farm equipment. So we have to make sure we use double doors and things like that to make sure that they can't get in. There are a number of items that we have to be very careful of in our greenhouse because certain crops can't go to certain places without that USDA or Michigan Department of Ag stamp of approval. Tomatoes in Canada, for instance, chrysanthemum is another one, the Shasta daisy. We need to be careful because some places, if they don't have the disease pressure or the pest pressure yet, they certainly don't want to get it. Thrips is a big problem on finished material. We do a lot of finished growing now, and they can be very resistant to chemicals. We have to be very careful on what we use and when we use. We have to be surgical, just so we don't just spray and dump chemicals everywhere. I think the greenhouse industry developed a reputation, I think, along with farming, with runoff and things like that. And you're probably going to lose me again. It's starting to get a little funky here, but I'm going to keep talking. And so we have to be real careful with what we bring into the greenhouses and actually what goes out. We use biologicals where we can. Our greenhouse, like I mentioned earlier, was set up for seeds. And the way we set up our greenhouses so that each range was a different climate. So our benches roll, and we can roll them from one end to the other. And as when they first come out of sowing, they go into a warm environment, if that's what they call for. It could be a warm, moist environment. We use foggers, things like that. But as they get more ready for shipping, we cool things down as much as we can to tone them up. So we are actively looking for pests and disease. We also do passive IPM or integrated pest management. So in this picture here, you see this yellow tape. It's a yellow sticky tape. A lot of greenhouses use yellow sticky cards. Yellow is a good attractant. Thrips like it, and that's our biggest problem usually in the greenhouse. There's some other pests too, but the thrips are the biggest because they've developed resistance to most of the commercially available chemicals. But this is a good one because we connect this to our water booms. So the nozzles will spray water down, hit the trays. The bugs don't like that, so they jump up and get caught onto this sticky tape. And then once it gets full, you can get rid of the sticky tape. So we do a lot of different things to make sure our greenhouses are as clean as can be and are ready to make sure that plants can go through them without any problems. One of the things that I mentioned, we talked about seeds and then vegetative. Well, another way for smart gardening, especially for us, is seeds are a lot cheaper. The vegetative cutting is more expensive because from the time it's on the mother plant in, let's say, Central America, to the time it's in our greenhouse, less than 24 hours elapse typically. These large farms have airstrips to get to a hub, and then they fly and they come to us. So they're still basically a viable plant at that time. Now, if you look on the left, the Encanto orange, that is a plant from a vegetative cutting. It's a clone. It's beautiful. It's fairly expensive, but you know what you're getting. Now, the next two plants are seed varieties, and you can see that the one in the middle, the Santa Cruz Sunset, it looks pretty good, but you can see the leaves that come out, and that's not really desirable. You want the flowers outside of the leaf structure and things like that. And then on the end, you'll see this Bossa Nova orange, which looks pretty darn good. The problem with that is it's very finicky. It's not true. The seeds don't come out true a lot. So there are trade-offs that we have to worry about to make sure that we're offering the best options to our customers who can offer them to everybody. Here's another example. The plant on the right is a Calibrachoa that's from a cutting, Million Bells. It's very popular. This is a fairly immature version of this. If you look on the left, you'll see the seed version from another breeding company. It still looks pretty good, but the biggest problem is that flower power. People want to have those flowers. They want to make sure that they have that wow factor. And right now, it's getting better, but for a lot of things, the vegetative cutting is the way to go. Here's an example of geraniums. Same company, one's a vegetative cutting, one is a seed item. Now, some of our growers, some of our customers will say, you know, we want to do something where we just want to put a whole bunch of them out. They're going to be in a landscape setting. They're going to be somewhere where all we need is some color as people drive by. So this Maverick might be the one that works for them. We try to offer that. We try to trial things to make sure that we can offer those informed choices for folks. Now this here, we talk about time and making sure that if you are a gardener that you don't bite off more than you can chew. This is my backyard from last year. And like I said earlier, I have lots of grand intentions throughout the summer, at the beginning of the summer. However, by the end of the season, it tends to look kind of messy. I don't take care of things because I'm here in the gardens all the time. But this is something that people are really into now, where they want to make sure that they can have a place that they can escape from reality, or if they're stuck at home, they can step away from their desk, their kitchen table, whatever they're working from home at, and just get away from things for a little bit. This is another spot. This was actually my temporary garden. As I brought cool new things home, I would just stick it in here, and then turns out it would stay there, and things would just grow and grow and grow. One of the things that we really are careful about, I mentioned, are spraying. We aren't organic, but and we use biologicals, but we are, again, very surgical in what we do. if a tray or a bench or a group in in one of our greenhouses needs to be treated, that's all we treat. We have virtually no runoff. We use the chemicals that are the least harmful to the environment and to our workers. We need to be very careful that we use proper protective equipment. The biggest thing now is with masks. Well, we use masks a lot in our greenhouse, just as a matter of safety. If someone is applying a chemical that may be deemed safe, we don't want to take any chances. We want to make sure that we do things correctly. Neonicotinoids are really is a real hot button right now. When used properly, they have their place, but more and more companies are getting away from that. They want to make sure that not only are we doing what's best for the environment, but we listen to our customers, our suppliers listen to us, so we want to make sure we do that. The problem with that is as we try to get more user-friendly, environmentally friendly plants out, sometimes we may not have we have the best intentions, but we may not do the proper testing. A few years ago, there was a product called Hachi Hachi. It means 8-8 in Japanese. In Japanese, the number 8 is a lucky number. So there was this whole marketing campaign. It was safe for the environment. It was safe for workers. And it burned the heck out of everything it touched. So it was quickly taken off the market. And it was just one of those things where you realize that this is not the best thing. Being fast is not the best thing to do. You want to make sure that you want to test things. You want to make sure that things are being done as best as they can, the best way they can. One of the things that the breeders do is they make sure that they're also providing the latest and greatest stuff. So on the left here, you'll see Petunia Wave. Wave is everyone knows what a wave is. You can see it, it's branded, it's got a great marketing campaign. And this is Purple Classic. This is one of Pan American Seeds' top sellers of all time. Well, they improved it. So it doesn't look a lot different, but in real life, it is a better plant. The flower power is better, the structure is better, the self-deadheading and shedding is better. It's just these tweaks that are constantly happening, and we do everything we can to make sure our customers, again, get the best and we can give them informed decisions. A lot of our customers are old school. They say, I've grown Purple Wave Classic for the last 10 years. I'm not going to change. Then we can try to convince them with either hands-on things. If they come to our gardens, they can see it. They can see side by side, or through education. So we're always trying to provide the best information for our customers as well. Petunias are a great example of that. There's all kinds of really, really cool petunias that are on the market. These star patterns are real popular. There's different flower patterns and things like that. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. One of the cool ones that we did is when a breeder comes to me or a sales guy comes to me and says, I've got a red petunia that's the best on the market. And again, I say, okay, let's try it. So 3 years ago, we did a blind red petunia trial. And we wanted to show that for the most part, most of the red petunias are pretty much the same. And we proved that true. So when that happened, we said, well, let's try again with a pink petunia trial. So we did. So we did pink petunias. And of course, when I talk with people, everyone's version of pink is a little bit different. So you'll see a lot of different things here. The flamingos are just a touch that we put for one of our events. And this one right here was the best. It was from seed, and it was Easy Wave Pink. So this was one where being a seed item was helpful, being a branded name that was well known in the industry was helpful, and it really was. They really could put their money where their mouth was. Now, the other things that are cool now that you've probably seen around are these speckled or starry petunias. This one here, Petunia Night Sky from one of the ball horticulture companies from, it's called Selecta, a German company. They developed this, it's called Starry Night, and it's about 4 years old now. So they were the first to market, and they came out, and it was just a wow plant. Really good. It's really kind of finicky. You have to watch moisture, you have to watch feeding, you have to be real careful with it. Well, they've improved on it and improved on it. And then next thing you know, there was a copycat. There was another company called Westhoff. They came out with their version of these, the Aries, the Gemini, and the Virgo. And they said, well, look, ours are just as good too, and they're more stable and they're better. Well, it turned into one of these, okay, now what's the next step? What's the next step? So the next step is Selecta came out with a pink one. And then another company came out with a pink one. So there's all this me too and catch up and I can do better. And the biggest thing that we do as a commercial grower is, again, and I can't stress this enough, is we put their money where their mouth is. We make sure that if they're going to say something, if they're going to make some claims, we're going to back that up. And we're very fortunate that we have our gardens that we can do that. A lot of commercial growers may not be able to do that, but they don't. They're growing big blocks of things. We pride ourselves that our catalog has about 3,000 varieties in it, everything from vegetables to perennials to herbs to cut flowers to annuals. And we also will custom grow virtually anything that someone asks us to get. Before we do that though, that's where I come in and I'll take the seeds or the cuttings and I test for germination, I test when the flowering time is, I test to make sure that it's going to be true to what it's claimed to be doing and making sure that it's exactly what it's supposed to be. This is one, it's called an echinacea. And if you think about it, just in the name, it's a cross between a sunflower, or I'm sorry, a coneflower and a black-eyed Susan. So it was a great idea. It didn't work so well in reality at first. They're better now. They've been working at it. They've been refining the breeding, and they're getting a lot better at making sure that the plant is stable. It's a tender perennial, and it's actually one that I've changed my opinion on over the last 2 years. They've gotten a lot more stable and a lot better. But it's just proof that sometimes being first, being new, is not always being the best. In our greenhouses, we do a lot of different things to make sure, again, that we're doing things right for the plants and also for our people. I mentioned we have a misting system. We do that to make sure that the plants get the moisture when they need it and where they need it. And then you can see out here, this is just one of our ranges. All of our benches have barcodes. All of our trays have barcodes. So we can tell through our system exactly what is where in any point at any time in our greenhouse. 95% of everything that we grow is already sold. We grow to order. We don't just grow a lot of things to say, yep, we hope that people will buy these Starry Night petunias. We're a little bit behind the curve with that. We go to different events. We talk to customers. We talk to breeders to make sure to see what's coming up, and then I get to take that information and turn it into something that we can use in our gardens, that we can use all summer long and use as a resource for not only our industry, but also for the end consumer as well. We do LED testing. We actually do growing. We grow ranunculus for some Canadian growers. They want that in December and early January. Not a good time for that plant to grow in Michigan. We found on the rights, we can have a very consistent crop. We can do this. We actually do this in one of our chambers that we use when we're germinating seeds and things like that. We found that growing tuberous begonias under lights can shave a good 4 or 5 days off of the crop time. And a lot of times that's just as important as anything. Some of our smaller customers may not want to set up their greenhouse in February when they should, if they have to start growing plants that have long crop time. So the less time that they have to have a plant in its bud stage, the better for them and the better for us, because we can actually do more turns in our greenhouse too. One of the things that we're doing as we evolve is we've gotten into the hemp business. So 2017 Farm Bill has legalized hemp. It is a wonderful crop for, if you listen to the hype, for everything, anytime, anywhere. And it really is a good crop. It's not the magic bullet that everyone thinks it is. It's something that's very, just like anything else. It needs to be cared for, it needs to be treated properly, it needs to be grown properly. These are some stock plants that we have. I'm actually going to be doing a trial outside with hemp this summer, and our customers will be able to see exactly how a plant is going to perform. For what we're doing, we are in the liner business for these, so we're selling babies again that are going to go out into the fields and go to places where they might plant 1, 2, 10, 50 acres of this stuff. It's really interesting. It does turn a lot of heads. We have to be very careful about people stealing our plants because they may not know what it is. They may think it's cannabis. However, that is obviously something that is very tightly regulated, and it doesn't just grow out in the field. Although some places around here, I think it does, just because of the rural aspect of things. But this is one of the things that we're doing to help our customer base expand and stay viable as times change and as pace in planting and plants and things like that. So this is a picture of just one of our beds. I'm going to talk a little bit, just very briefly, about our trial gardens. I've been mentioning it a lot. This year, they are from July 15th through August 4th. We are open to the public. Typically, I would have greenhouse tours and we provide lunch every day. We have a couple of big events. Unfortunately, with COVID, I had to cancel all that, but the gardens are still open, and there are a lot of very, very nice things to see. This year, we're doing not only our sponsored areas, which are at the front of the picture, but toward the back, on the back side of that shade cloth, that's our comparison area where I said I make these breeders put their money where their mouths are. This year, we're doing salvia as a big trial. It is the National Garden Bureau's year of the lantana. So we're doing lantana in baskets and in the ground. We're doing vinca in baskets in the ground. We also do perennials. It's the year of the lavender from the National Garden Bureau again. So we have a lavender trial with 30 or 40 different lavenders that we're doing the weekend. And then the other thing that's big and has been big are container vegetables. So I've got 90 container vegetables this year in 20-inch pots that we'll be showing. And the neat thing about our gardens is that it changes every single day. I walk out there every day and there's something new to see, something different, just like any of our gardens at home. And the other thing with our gardens is we collect data, height, spread, overall vigor, things like that, and then we take pictures. So we will take pictures of everything that we have in our garden every single week, and I have a website, so I guess that I will put up in a second here. This is just another shot of as we're getting ready to go outside. We group everything up. Sorry. So these are just some pictures of as we get ready for going out in the garden. You can see we lay things out there. This is the nuts and bolts behind the magic of our garden. So, and then we have different sponsored areas. This is a perennial bed. This has been in for, I think it's on its 8th year now. You can see it's quite unruly. This picture was taken in probably July. Right now, it's a gorgeous bed. A lot of perennials, they look good early, and then they get kind of leggy in that. Some of our breeders just want to see their stuff in containers. Some of them actually do put a little thought into the design work and do different things. We have large container hanging basket trial. This was a New Guinea patient trial that typically New Guineas are a shade plant. Since we are a trial site, I put almost 200 of these in full sun. Now we're a little bit different than a normal gardener because we have drip lines. We have folks that go through and give them a little bit of tender loving care. My one rule is if we do it for one, we do it for everything. So we can't have one variety that we treat with TLC. We do what we can to all of them. This is another picture of just the pneumonia. We have our container area. This area here has 220 different of the latest and greatest containers. So every year our breeders sponsor these areas and they show off their latest and greatest stuff. This is just a cool picture that I really like. So I know my time is running out. These are just some general garden pictures. We also are part of the Michigan Garden Plant Tour. I just want to take a minute to plug that. It is us, Mass Young Plants, Michigan State University, Walters Greenhouse, and 4-Star, which is a proven winners garden. It's the last week in July and the first week in August. They have different things that are set up during those times. We do the same thing. We'll have our breeders and product reps will come and talk about the plants and just be available for things like that. These are some of the different places that we've gone to. One of the things that we also do, when we do this every couple of years, is a mum trial. I mentioned about the white rust that we have to worry about. We also have to be aware of all the different things that show up. A breeder will say, gee, these are the earliest flowering mums. Well, you can see from this picture that some of these mums are obviously not in flower yet. Some I have already spent. The ones at the front of the screen have already pretty much flowered as much as they're going to flower there on the downside, and they're really done. So we get to show that off. We get to see those things. One of the things that we started doing is combining 3 different mums that time out the same, that have the same habit, and we call them mumbos. And it's really been a great seller. You've probably seen them. They're all over the place. If you see a mum at a store that has multiple plants in it, it's probably one of ours. This is just a nice aerial shot of us. I'm the company photographer as well, so not only do I get to see the cool plants, but I also get to take pictures of the cool plants. And I get to go up, this is from a drone, but one of our owners actually had an airplane, and we would go up and take pictures of the facility of this plane, which was really a neat experience. So here is the information for our Trial Gardens website, and it's http:// not www, that won't work, trialgardens.raker.com. If you go to that site, you can see everything. I keep 5 years or 4 years of photos up there, just because of the space constraints, and they're high-res pictures. You're welcome to use them as you will, and it's just something that's really something, in case anyone hasn't, it's something that's neat to see, and something that is really a sight to behold. If you can make it out in person, we would be glad to have you. And with that, I'm going to stop. I can stop sharing. I can leave this one up.
You can go ahead and keep sharing it. I'm going to make it so that everybody can unmute themselves. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question, or feel free to use a text question. And we'll see if we can get your questions answered, if that's all right, Greg.
Do whatever you need.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? If you're looking for the unmute button, it's over in the lower left-hand corner, and you should be able to click that now and unmute yourself. You you can ask a question, or like I said, feel free to use the chat function. It's also located at the bottom of the screen.
These are so much better in person.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're dealing with a different set of rules for a few months, it seems like.
We surely are. So if anyone does have any questions, Amanda, you have my contact information. Feel
Definitely.
free. You're welcome to reach out to me and I'll do everything I can to answer any questions. I can do whatever you need. Like I said, normally we would give greenhouse tours and things like that. And unfortunately, due to COVID, we're not really allowing that anymore. But right now, but that certainly can change. But certainly, one of the things that I encourage with groups, garden clubs, master gardener groups, things like that, is just to come out. We have groups that will have one of the monthly meetings out here. We have a big top tent. You'll see 180 people, and it's a nice evening to come out, explore the gardens, do your business. I know you all are pretty far away. You're probably about 2 hours away, so that might not be practical. But certainly a day trip, especially during the Michigan Garden Plant Tour, swing by Michigan State maybe, come see us, or forget everyone else and come see us. It's just, I can't stress enough, I can't encourage enough, and I know I like this because I know I'm preaching to the choir. When I talk about smart gardening, when I talk about flowers and that, any one of us is a smart gardener. Just the fact that we are growing, that we are doing something with plants and the earth and giving back to that, that to me is the rule of what a smart gardener is. Someone who's actually taking those steps and doing that, and hopefully finding joy from the garden. I know my maintenance crew finds joy at planting, which is what they're doing now, but they also find joy at clear out time because they have to take care of these wonderful gardens around. They don't get to enjoy them as much. They have to worry about the pests and the disease and deadheading. And anyone who's ever had to deadhead geraniums and think what a pain that is, think about doing it to 150 of them every single week with 15 to 20 plants of each variety. So there's a lot of different things to do, a lot of different things to see, and I encourage you all to come out and if not enjoy our gardens, enjoy your own or anyone's garden.
Greg, I do have one question for you on chat. Jackie's asking, since we all have Japanese beetles and they're a real threat to us, what do you guys do if you find them? What's your secret weapon?
You know, our secret weapon is 7. You can get them anywhere. We try to make sure that we can get them when they come out, when they first start. We did try at one time using the milky spore in our grounds, and that is more of a long-term thing. So we have folks that scout, and like I mentioned, our maintenance crew, our growers, we are out there every single day. So we try to stop them as soon as they happen. Unfortunately, some things, dahlias, hibiscus, things like that, they just get eaten like crazy. The only thing that I can say with that is we try to plant enough things that even if things get eaten up, it's not everything. We have the same problem with deer as well. Right now, they decimated one of my Michalak trials, and we just aren't even eating them. They're just sucking them out of the ground. We have cameras that show them, just yanking them out of the ground. So we use deer repellent. We also work with the DNR for crop deprivation permits as a last resort. But mostly we try to have enough stuff around that if a little bit of a lot of things we eat, it doesn't show quite so much. However, to your question, for a home gardener, we just use, like I said, we use 7, and we follow the recommended dosages and the intervals, and a lot of it is just picking those little buggers right off of the plants, switching them if you're not into that, throw them into a little bucket of water, something. A lot of what we do is mechanical too. If you see bugs, if there's not a lot of them, we'll take them out. We try to use spray as an antidote. Some of the homeopathic remedies that have been suggested, we tried, and they don't really work. If the bug is going to eat something, it's going to eat something. And sometimes chemicals are the only thing. Sometimes you just have to realize that, we're in nature's backyard. We're the creator, and we got to do what we can to live with them as much as we can.
Did anybody else have any questions for the evening? I mean, like Greg said, we can always forward those on via email too. If you have anything, you can feel free to email me, or we'll get you in touch with Greg. Does anybody else have any questions? Or feel free to use a chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask, and we'll see what we can do. It looks like that might be it for tonight, Greg, but thank you so much for taking some time and fighting through the internet storm problem that you guys are experiencing right now. And thank you so much for the great presentation. I have a message here from Kathleen. She said the pictures were great. She really appreciated
that. Again, pictures worth 1,000 words, but seeing it for yourself is actually the best. So I'm sure that's my shameless plug. So come visit us often.
All right, we will make sure to head your way. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting, and everybody have a good night.
Good night.